Okay, so let's start talking about the project I think most people know you from first, Zombies.
Let's do it.
Um, so Zombies has kind of become like the next generation's High School Musical. How does it feel to be involved in such an influential project for Disney?
Great question. It still doesn't really hit just how impactful the franchise has been. I think shooting this fourth movie, definitely I felt it the most. I was able to reflect on the past three and really understand just how historic it is. I don't think any Disney movie has gone to four movies before, so that in itself is such an honor.
Hmm.
But above all that, I think I'm the most proud of just what the message of the Zombies franchise is and how I feel like it's changed many people's lives. When you hear just the number of how many people have seen it, it doesn't hit you as hard as receiving a letter from one person that was like, you inspired me to try out for football, or you
Hmm.
inspired me to try this technology club or whatever. And I think it's those moments where I feel the proudest. I remember, the feeling of like meeting Selena Gomez and Zac Efron, not to put myself next to them at all, but if I can even provide a sliver of that feeling to somebody, then, what an honor to be in that position. But I think bottom line, the fans of Zombies are so positive and uplifting and accepting. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that Zombies has put so much love into the world, and for that reason, I'm honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can tell you're really passionate about, working with everyone on this. So why do you think that Zombies has consistently attracted such a large audience through the years? Is it the message like you were referring to before?
That's a great question. I think that people come for the singing and dancing and the spectacle of it all, and they stay for the message and the feeling of it all. You know, we obviously, I think the thing that makes Zombies so cool in the beginning is the dancing. There's amazing songs in it, but I just don't think that Disney has had dancing like this in a movie before. And I think that even just shooting the first three, I think it was the dancers that showed me and the cast, this is what this can be, and this is how cool it can be. And as time's gone on, we've stepped up to the plate more and more. And come the fourth movie, we're the ones that are trying to get these new dancers out of their shell. But I think that the dancing, the songs, it's really hard not to feel inspired and passionate and motivated and just excited and like a kid watching that stuff. But then under all of that, I call it the trappings, if you will, the trappings of the sick songs and dancing, the just cool colors and characters and
Yeah.
creatures, things that you see. Beneath all of that is a beautiful message of love and acceptance. Every movie, sort of a new take and twist on that. I think the fourth movie being the most pressing message. But I think that that's where you sort of, it doesn't really matter what age you are, or even if you know, necessarily, even if you don't necessarily like football or cheerleading or whatever. I think that's the thing where the humanity comes through, and we've all felt like outsiders, and we've all been in a position where we can welcome someone in, whether you know it or not. So I think shooting these movies are always a great reminder to me about how much I value positivity, acceptance, lifting people up, and hopefully that rubs off on people as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you mentioned that you guys just finished filming Zombies 4. Is there anything you can share more about the plot or Zed's character development in the fourth
Yeah.
installation of this?
I think, simply put, the fourth movie is my favorite, besides the iconic first movie. I
Mhm.
think soundtrack wise, hands down, Zombies 4 is just the most well-rounded, solid soundtrack. We've had this is now we had the choreographers from 3 come back to do 4, so I think they really stepped up to the plate and they were like, we can now just go there to all the places we wanted to go in the third. And the most importantly, we have 5 new cast members who hopefully will carry the franchise forward. And they're all incredible people. It's such an honor to get to know them. They're younger than me, and I felt like sometimes like an older brother, sometimes like a parent, sometimes I felt like a younger brother. They're showing me up. But it was such a beautiful blessing to be able to step into that older brother role a little bit, and be there for them. And seriously, like they blow me away with their talent. They're all incredible human beings. They're all so similar to their characters in the best ways. And it got me super excited for them, because they do kill it. But I think the fourth movie, I think it checks every box for me that I was worried about going into it.
Mhm.
So it exceeds every box as well. So I think people are going to be very pleasantly surprised with the look of Zombies 4.
So would you say you definitely enjoyed working with the cast this time around, and being that big brother mentor figure to them?
Yeah, I always love it. And also, it was having these five new characters, it brought a new relationship for me, Meg, Chandler, and Kylie, because we're in a new boat together. And on top of that, being a producer with Meg, being on that side of things, and collaborating with the production team and learning how the logistics work. There was a lot of different shoes to step into on Zombies 4, and I'm all about collecting life experiences. So it was a very fulfilling 3 months. But I do love everybody that's a part of this franchise, like family. And those kids really impressed me and amazed me every day with something new. But especially Malachi and Freya being the older brother to them two, I just was so reassured every day that the franchise was in good hands moving forward.
Hmm. You mentioned that you're working as a producer on this film with Meg Donnelly, who's amazing, I'm sure. Are there any other similar projects you want to consider going into in the future? I know that you just filmed Sabrina Carpenter's music video, and that was kind of like a new project for you, right?
Yeah, the Sabrina thing worked out really well because I was just, me and Sabrina have been friends for a long time. And it worked out perfectly that I was in New York when she was shooting this thing. I had no idea what the concept even was, but, I love Sabrina and I was like, I'm sure this is going to be cool. So that was really an exercise of like just kind of jumping into something. But I had no creative say on that, which was the opposite on Zombies, where I had lots of creative say and felt like I really wanted to I really wanted to offer some stuff because I produced Zombies 3 as well, but I didn't really do very much. Me and Meg made a couple differences,
Hmm.
but I think on Zombies 4, being on this side of things, just seeing the whole umbrella of zombies, looking at every character, not just thinking for Zed, but thinking for everybody else. Um, that was cool, and to be able to learn about the logistics of producing, saving time and money, and the most efficient way to do things, that was really cool. But I think that the place where I could offer the most was my understanding of the zombies universe creatively. And I absolutely want to keep doing more behind the camera, whether that be music videos with good friends or whether that be, you know, huge franchises for Disney. We'll see. But, I'm always a creative and I'm always looking to try something new, and to learn something new.
Hmm. As a creative and as someone who's worked on so many different projects in the past, including for Disney, can you talk more about how, your experience acting for Disney kind of differs from other things you might have done, like Thanksgiving or School Spirits and Journey to Bethlehem?
That's a great question. And it's something that I consider a lot. Um, I think starting with Disney was really interesting because acting on Disney is actually somewhat difficult. I mean, it's a hard sport, and I feel like with every project, there's a different type of acting you have to bring. But Disney's sometimes tricky because you want to be entertaining, over the top, and funny, but you also really want to be true and you want to be believable, and you don't even want to act. You just want to live truthfully this imaginary circumstance. And what's really fun with Disney is that those circumstances tend to be awesome. We're meeting vampires and we're meeting new creatures and we get to play with magic and we get to do things that oftentimes you don't get to do in the real world. But doing other things like I'm in Vancouver right now working on School Spirit season 2, getting back to Wally, who at first glance is a very similar character to Zed. But I think that there's just a little bit more uh I don't want to say depth because there's lots of depth to the Disney characters as well. But I think Disney is it's a lot more tell, don't show. And things outside of Disney are show, don't tell. So I think it's a matter of, what do I want to put in your face right here? And what do I want you to infer? I think a lot of acting is not only what you do, but what you don't do and the things that you're thinking. And not only is it just a different acting approach outside of Disney to Disney, but it's a different approach for every single character. Sometimes you focus on the physicality of it all. Sometimes you focus on how you want to say your words. And there's lots of different actions and different goals and restrictions for every project. So that's the beauty of it, is that it's new every time and you kind of have to solve this riddle, this unsolvable riddle. That's how I see it.
Speaking of all these different characters that you've been playing, is there any character you think that you're the most different from?
Yeah, that's a good that's a good question. Because it's really hard for me to find an answer. I think that my goal when playing any character is to find all the ways in which we're similar.
Mm.
I think that generally I'm not I'm pretty different from my character Ben Plunkett in the movie Prom Pact. Ben he's not very confident in his own skin. He feels like he's not really living his life the way he wants to. He seems pretty socially awkward and anxious at times. And that's not all I'm saying is I don't exist that way all the time. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean I've never felt that way. So I feel like the job for Ben was to remember those feelings. I know what it feels like to be incredibly anxious. I know what it feels like to not want to make eye contact with somebody. I know what it feels like to be uncomfortable in this person's presence, and just to remember that feeling and bring it to the character the whole time, or scene by scene, whatever it calls for. So my focus is more on in the ways my characters are similar, and a lot of the times it's harder to connect those dots. But I'm always trying to find myself in my characters, so I think I could find similarities in all of them.
Mhm. And could you explain a little bit more about how you get into the headspace of all these different characters? I know that you start by looking at the similarities, but is there anything else you do?
That's a great question. I think, well, for me, I oftentimes will try to hone in on what I think is important in this character. Um, Sometimes I'm not even trying to think of the physicality because what's important to this character is something else. And sometimes that's where I begin, is the physicality. Sometimes it's a matter of letting go and really not thinking too hard. When it comes to Zed, with zombies, it's really just like learn the lines and then go out there and have fun. When it comes to Joseph and Journey to Bethlehem, it's one of the most important stories ever told, where I really don't want to do a disservice to this man that lived. So that's a lot more conscious of what you want to do there. But I think the fun part is getting a new role, figuring out how you want to approach it, and doing it. And there is no right or wrong, which is the beautiful thing. Once you're cast for the role, somebody's saying, "Hey, I trust you to make these decisions." And oftentimes the director, will come in and step in and say, "I'm not seeing this," or "I am seeing this." But bottom line is, now it's up to the actor to figure out what's important. And I don't think I'm ever going to feel like I've gotten that down. But David Bowie says, if you feel like you're treading water, then you're doing the art correctly. So that's
Mhm.
how I never want to feel like I have a good grasp on it. I want to feel like I'm always figuring it out.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Going back to you kind of personally, you mentioned that your character, Ben, in Prom Pact is a lot more like socially awkward and a little unsure of himself. How were you in high school? And would you be considered more of like a theater kid, or were you invested in like football like Zed was?
Well, I was definitely a theater kid. I played football in middle school and I played volleyball in high school. I really tried to be a social butterfly, and I really enjoyed getting out of school, all the things that I had to offer. In fact, I just had my high school reunion. I had my 5-year reunion a couple days ago. Excuse me. And
Oh,
I was just walking around the school, and every part of the school was familiar to me. And I was like, I really feel like I took everything out of this school. I joined so many clubs and met so many different people. But I think if I were to go back, I call myself a social butterfly, but I think that if I were to go back, I would have even wanted to beat to my own drum a little bit more, even. I think when we're in high school, we always have that thing in the back of our head that we all want to fit in. We're all it's very human. It's primal to want to fit in and do what everybody else is doing and be a part of the group. And a lot of times that can be great, but sometimes if it's in a toxic way, you're just spending your time doing something you don't want to do. So I'm really happy that I was never really ashamed of doing theater, because there was a time where I was a little embarrassed, and once I got over that, my life became so much happier.
mhm.
uh, but I loved high school. I think I was a positive force at school. Um, I loved going every day. I loved my friends there, and I've loved seeing everybody go explore and do their own things since high school. So yeah, I wish I could go
See-
back.
So, seeing that you were into theater in high school, did you always know that you wanted to pursue acting professionally, or was there like a moment that ever solidified that for you?
I think it was very the second I started acting, I knew that I loved it. But I don't think I ever thought I would do it professionally, because it's just such a hard job.
Mhm,
It's I even at 8 years old knew how unrealistic it was to become an actor, and how cutthroat the industry could be. And my mom's an actress as well, and I've seen her on set, and it's very overwhelming. And I guess I just never thought I was capable of doing that. I definitely thought that I enjoyed doing theater. I felt like I was totally in my element, but I'm not naive. And I know that there are kids all over the world doing exactly what I'm doing, loving it just as much. So I really owe it to this one person, Amber Horn, who saw me in a show at my school and told me to audition for Zombies. And I think it was booking Zombies, I was able to tell myself, oh, you can do this. It's not absolutely insane. So it happened very whimsically. I was thrown into it. And I don't think, had I been thrown into it, I would be here right now. Because even my mom being an actress, being so amazing at it, um, I think watching her do it, it should have been like, oh, if she can do it, I can follow her footsteps. But I think in reality, it made me just a little bit more scared, seeing how much work and time she put into it. So I've always loved it, and I'm very grateful I've found myself working professionally.
mhm. Seeing that your mother is an amazing actress, award winning, how has she impacted your understanding of, the film and entertainment industry? And are there any other lessons that you've learned from her?
Yeah, I'm an only child, and my mom's a single mother, and we were very close. There was a time in my life where like mothers and sons do, we were fighting every now and then. We butt heads. And I never, especially when I was a teenager, I never wanted to ask my mom anything. I didn't want her help, you know. And acting was the only thing where I would ask her questions. And I think that that showed to her how much I really did love it.
Mhm,
When I was going out for the Zombies audition, I don't think my mom ever had this fear where I was getting into it for the wrong reasons, because she always saw that I loved it so much. But if I'm ever shooting a self tape or something and really want a better understanding about something, I'll ask my mom. Acting is a really weird occupation, and everybody learns about it differently. It's kind of a blessing to have my mom, who I know so well, and we think so similarly. It's almost like peeking into the future of like having sat on this for a little bit. But, you know, I think that the best part about having my mom being an actress as well is just the conversation that we get to have between the two of us. Uh, and with every life experience, I feel like my it enriches my acting, and with every character that I play, I feel like it just makes my life even better. So it's a very therapeutic industry, and I'm grateful that my mother thinks similarly to me when it comes to acting.
She must be really proud of you.
I hope so. I have no idea. I think so. I think so.
While we're talking about lessons and the kind of things you learn from being out there, after working on zombies for so many years, was there anything that you picked up on, playing Zed, and is there anything you learned from like growing up with him on screen?
Yeah, I think Zed has taught me a lot. First of all, he really does beat to his own drum. He does his own thing, which I admire. But second of all, this is kind of meta, but like I feel like every time I come back to do a zombies movie, I feel like there's a duty to go back to Zed, to how he was. And I think that especially this time around, I realized like I've changed so much, and it would be such a disservice to Zed for him not to change. It's been 3 years, or it's been time spent away from him. He's clearly different now. And I think he's shown me, just being with him for this long, it's okay to come back and be different and to have learned something. And maybe somebody's gonna watch it and be like, that's not the same Zed that I knew, and whatever. But doesn't matter, because Zed is growing and changing.
Mhm.
But I think that's been a weird thing. Starting with Disney too, knowing that my fan base is really young, and as I'm growing older, and making my way into adulthood, some of these kids aren't still, and making sure that I'm respectfully uh making that transition is interesting. But I think when it comes to just lessons I've learned being on the zombies set, I always have greatly appreciated the value of positivity. I always have been a very positive person, but I think being on this set, spending time with these people, it's really shown me just how important it is to simply be kind, to simply be nice. It really makes everybody's time so much more enjoyable. Um, the things a lot of the time it feels like we're not the ones making the impact, but every single one of us are. A lot of the times it's like, oh, I'm not the person that's going to brighten somebody's day by saying that one thing to them, just by saying, wow, your outfit is amazing today. I don't know about you, but when I hear those compliments or hear those positive things, it changes the course of my day. So to
Mhm.
think that you don't have that capability is absurd. And I think that it's taken me lots of movies to realize the power that we each individually have to spread positivity and to accept others. So I think it's just reminded me of all the good, important things in life and to value what's right.
So, when you first got the news that you booked the role of Zed, did you ever anticipate how successful and how much of an impact this entire franchise would have?
Not at all. And I also never expected another movie after every single movie we did. After the first, did not think we were getting a second. After the second, did not think we were getting a third. And after the third, definitely did not think we were getting a fourth. Um, I remember exactly where I was when I got the call. I was at my friend Jasper's house, and we were watching like Modern Family or something. And I remember I got a call from Meg, because me and
Mhm.
Meg have been auditioning together. And she goes, "Hi, did you get the call?" I was like, "No." And she's like, "Oh, okay, call me back later." And then she hangs up. I was like, "Okay, she definitely got the role. I'm not sure I got the role though," which
Mhm.
sucks. Quickly got a call from Disney. I ran up into Jasper's treehouse as to be as far away from everybody as possible, just in case I cried.
Mhm.
They told me. I immediately called Meg back. It was beautiful. And no, to answer your question, I thought we were making a movie that was going to play on Disney like 5 times. I thought we were making a movie that like they play it twice in one weekend, they play it next weekend, and it's like maybe the month of October. It's like a zombies movie. Yay.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then, no, very quickly were they expressing interest in a second and third and now fourth with, hopeful fifth and sixth and seventh, and we'll see how long the zombies movies can go. But let's keep pushing the positivity. I'm pushing P.
Yeah.
Positive.
Um, so you started acting in theater. Could you describe, that transition between acting on stage and then going into acting in television and film for Disney?
That's also a great question. I am recently finding my real love for acting on film because for so long theater was just unbeatable for me. I just love the energy of theater. I love the fact that we go from beginning to end consecutively. You know, you never redo it. I love the beauty of uh, the show must go on. And I love the beauty of things happening and then being done and it being one time for the audience and they laugh or cry with you and you feel that energy real time and it feeds you um, and seeing your friends after theater is so beautiful and also just the feeling of being backstage I love so much while the show is going on running in the darkness knowing that you're there for your cast members and it's all just happening at once. Making the transition to film is interesting because you lose a lot of that
Mm.
when it comes to shooting things chronologically. You're shooting it way out of order, you're shooting it multiple times. A lot of the times you're doing 20 seconds of the film takes 12 hours to shoot, and I used to be really frustrated by that because I really liked just being a part of the story and getting lost in it. But now I'm finding there's new beauty to being able to try something many times and be very specific and nuanced with the way you want it to be seen. But like it was a challenge for me at first, being on film. First of all, sometimes it's very intrusive just having a camera right in your face. Sometimes you're reading lines with somebody and you're supposed to be looking at them, but they're over there and you're looking at a piece of tape. And sometimes that's not even the real person, it's somebody else reading their lines. And also, don't go too far this way or you'll be blocking this thing. Or if you go too far this way, you'll be out of frame. And also make sure you project because we have the air conditioning. Like there's so many things, and a lot of the times that can be distracting, but it's a new challenge and hurdle for me to get over. I think I grew up with theater, so naturally it's my thing. But I think that I've really learned to love acting in a completely new way because of film. Acting for theater for me was all about entertaining and sort of being external. And for film, I've really allowed myself to be internal and to learn a lot more about myself and to stop trying to entertain. One of my favorite quotes, if not my favorite quote, period, that I learned at college was be interested, not interesting. I think that works really well for acting, but also just life. It, it's not funny watching someone try to be funny. It's funny watching someone try to convey something so hard that it's not coming through. Whatever. Bottom line is, I've really learned to listen really well in film, and both theater and film have something completely different to offer. And for me, there's pros and cons to both, but ultimately, they're both very therapeutic for me. So I'm grateful and appreciative that I get to do them both.
You briefly mentioned college. I know you went to NYU. Go Violets. I'm also NYU.
Let's go.
So, can you talk more about your experience, at Tisch and what you learned from there?
Yeah, I love New York so much. I think that was the reason that I went to NYU was more so just to be in the city. And I'm from LA. Um, and I feel like at this point in my life, I'm pretty bi-coastal. I'm back and forth between LA and New York a lot. And I really appreciate them both. But New York, I feel like everybody is going there to seriously do their art, and that is something that I love about New York. There's no judgment really. I always say New York is like the best city to people watch, but it's also the city that nobody people watches because everyone's just like doing their own thing. Um, but I met so many like-minded artists in New York, which I'll forever be grateful for. Like I went to college for 1 year, I never graduated, but even in my small conservatory, I'm so much closer to all my friends in New York than most of my high school friends. But New York is just such a fantastic city, which if if everybody has the opportunity to go, then they absolutely should. Um, I also just love theater, and there's theater galore there, and I feel like I can be myself in New York. I feel like I can dress more adventurously in New York. I feel like I life happens so randomly in New York, and you have to plan so heavily in LA. In New York, you can just walk outside, and for 10 hours, your day is made and you're having fun. My mom always says in LA, life happens when you get there. In New York, life happens on the way there. That's a quote that I love. So New York's happening, and I always love it there, considering moving there. So maybe I'll see y'all New Yorkers very soon.
Yeah, you should. So you mentioned a lot of different quotes that I'm assuming you're living by. One from David Bowie, one from your mother. Is there anything else that inspires you, to pursue acting or just like to live every day, whether that's like other actors or projects?
Yeah. First of all, I have been told by many of my friends that I have like an absurd amount of quotes. So yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I don't know. I love quotes. I like sometimes something happens and it just sticks with you. And to answer your question about, inspiring me to make more art, but also inspiring me to live my life certain ways, is more art. Art imitates life, life imitates art. So many times I watch a movie and not only does it inspire me to be a better actor, but it inspires me to get off my ass and go live my life. This is
Hmm.
a really like pretty on the nose movie for that. What am I trying to say? This is a pretty like on the nose choice for what I'm trying to say. But like I just rewatched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which is
Hmm.
like a movie about really taking over your own life and taking control. And not only was I like, let me go like explore the like Icelandic mountains or wherever he was, but I was also like, let me write something beautiful that shows the world how beautiful life can be. Let me take a deep dive into my acting the same way Ben took a deep dive with Walter. Let me try to direct something. Let me try to evoke a feeling in this. Let me try to evoke this feeling of inspiration through a different lens. I think that life comes from you, not at you. So it's a matter of just choosing where to find the beauty, and it's really all over if you just take a second. So I think that I'm always trying to create the most inspiring space for myself. There's a book called The Creative Act, written by Rick Rubin. It's very popular right now, but I read it and continue to read it because every time I read the chapter, it's a good reminder um, that you can find this beauty everywhere. So I'm always trying to inspire myself, and sometimes, and this is really important. This is another quote. This is another quote that's super important. And sorry, I'm rambling,
No,
but
you're good. You're good.
a quote that I heard recently that I really loved. Some days the magic just isn't there. Don't be hard on yourself when the magic isn't there one day. Sometimes we have those days, and we need those days so that the magic is there for the others. So if you can't find your inspiration or passion one day, try again tomorrow. And yeah, that's it. Wow, I hope I answered your question. I've
Yeah,
been
you
giving
definitely did.
I've been giving you crazy curveball answers.
No, it's for the better, honestly. I can tell you're really passionate about what you're talking about, which is great.
Just a
Um,
passionate guy.
talking about like looking ahead to tomorrow, is there anything you're interested in next for the future of your career? Whether that's like, any roles, whether for Disney or for other projects?
I think I'm looking forward to trying new things. And I know that sounds really cliche, but I something that I've learned recently, and it's been a very like powerful realization as I've done these roles and just lived more life, is like, wow, we are all really different as human beings. We all have the same like capacity for emotion, but going back to my high school reunion recently, seeing how different everybody's lives are, we all came from the same spot and were raised the same way, educated the same way, um, you know, all in the same bubble. Now people are all across the world doing such unique things. And I think that I've been having this really intense sort of like realization that as human beings, we can all be so different, but we all really enjoy these pieces of art and movies because they evoke universal emotion in us. So I'm really looking forward to stepping into a character where it's something that I haven't even been close to experiencing before. Um, that's the beauty of this job is I've been a football player now. I've been a badass on a motorcycle. I've been Joseph, Jesus's stepdad. I've been a guy that gets killed in an elevator by Sabrina.
Hmm.
Like get to step into all these different things, and I just want the more different the better. So curious to see what happens, curious to see what dynamics of life I get to explore in future characters, but damn, do I hope it's weird.
That was a perfect answer.
Thank you.
Um, Seeing that we have 2 minutes left, would it be okay if we do some rapid fire questions?
Hell yeah, let's go. I'm so
Okay.
sorry that I took so long on those
No,
answers.
it's totally fine. If aliens came to Earth and you had to pick one person, real or fictional, to represent the human race and be an ambassador, who would it be?
Oh, probably like okay, they could do they have to be alive today?
No.
I'd probably pick Bob Ross.
Okay.
I think
Uh,
that's like pretty like self-explanatory. Very
yeah.
nice person who's very understanding and peaceful, and also could draw the aliens, which they would probably appreciate.
If you could choose anything to turn into a musical adaptation, thinking about your passion for your theater, what would it be?
The ideas just started flowing so hard.
List all of them.
Probably okay. Probably Peaky Blinders, the musical.
Mm.
Would love that. Would love to be a part of that. Um, oh wow, I would just make every single freaking day a musical if I could. I would also want to see Breaking Bad the musical. Um, I don't know. I guess I want to take like really serious, dark shows that I love and turn them into musicals. Um, oh, me, Meg, Chandler, and Kylie were toying with Katy Perry the musical. TM,
Mhm.
TM. It's ours. Um, but I think we'll be hitting y'all with a Katy Perry musical coming soon. We
Would you
haven't run
be?
it by Katy yet, so we don't
Would
know.
you be Katie?
We're in very early process.
Oh,
We're in
okay.
the early stages of the process right now, sort of sculpting our journey for our protagonist. I don't think I'd be Katie. I'd love to play the role of Dark Horse. I'd love to play
Okay.
the role of Last Friday Night. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I could totally see that working. Thank you so much for doing this. Loved
Oh,
all
of
your
course.
responses. Can't wait to see what's coming next out of your career.
Thank you so much for saying all that. I really appreciate this time. Thanks for the good questions.